and welcome to another exciting video from Ken's Training. Today what we're going to do is an annual preventive maintenance for a 40-ton air conditioning unit. This unit is a Condenser air conditioning unit. It's got one compressor. The refrigerant is R22. It's got 170 pounds of refrigerant. Condenser, the company that made this, is no longer in business. This unit here is about 27 years old. For the annual preventive maintenance, we're going to change out the air filters. We're going to lubricate all the bearings with grease. If there's dampers that are movable dampers for the economizer and so forth, we'll lubricate those movable pivot points. We're going to check all the belts and adjust them as necessary, and pretty much that's it. Now if I wanted to, I could put HVAC manifold gauges on here if I wanted to check the charge of the system, but at this point in time it's not necessary for me to check the charge, so I won't be doing that. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to check the belts. This is a supply fan motor right here, and hopefully you can see that on camera. It's dark in there. The belts look like they have a little bit of slop to them, so when we actually shut down and see the stationary, we're going to check the condition of those belts, and we'll adjust the tension by moving the motor that way. So that's one thing that we're going to do. There's a pillow block bearing behind that shiv. We're going to lubricate this side of the supply fan shaft plus the other bearing on the other side. Okay, that's that. This here is a VFD cabinet, variable speed drive, variable frequency drive. This is what the VFD looks like. The cabinet has a fan thermostatically controlled here. The fan is running, so that's a good thing. You've got to watch your hands. You don't want to touch. This is live electrical components. You can get electrically shocked here. The VFD also has a fan on the bottom here that might be very difficult for you to see with the camera, but one thing during the preventive maintenance, and we also do this on quarterly inspections, we want to make sure that's working. Also, I'll put my hand above the VFD, and the way the fan works is it draws heat up through the unit. So heat rises naturally anyway, so it just uses that same principle and assists it along, and there's a heat sink in the back of this to take the heat out of this VFD. So I can feel that there's good airflow there. So the VFD cabinet for the supply fan is in good condition. So that's one of the things we're going to check. Here's the VFD for the return fan section. I'm going to do the same inspection there. The cooling fan is operating, and the other fan for the VFD itself is operating. Plus I can feel the heat coming out of that really nicely. Plus I'm also going to look at the return fan. Here's the return fan. You notice that that's a lot smoother than the supply fan. It's not spinning as quickly because it's not needed, but also there's just not that much slop in those belts. Now that's that. The compressor's on right now, so it's a little loud, but we'll take a look back in there right now. Here's the electrical cabinet for this Condenser unit. Over here is the compressor, contactor, and fuses. Then next over is the supply fan. This used to be the contactor, but now with the VFD, it goes directly from here, so it's no longer contactor controlled. It goes from the fuses directly to the supply fan VFD. This one here is the return fan. That's the old contactor, no longer in service. The wires go directly to the return fan VFD. These are the condenser fan motors, 1 and 2, and then those contactors are still in service. And there's a transformer over here, and then a terminal block right there. Okay, so that's the electrical cabinet. here's the actual compressor inside. Two condenser fan motors up top, and then one compressor right there. It's got two stages on it. It's got two solenoid valves, so it's got 3 stages in total. Unloaded, loaded with one stage, and loaded with the second stage of the 3 stages. Alright, so we already got our air filters up here. We got water to wash the coils down. This is during the daytime operation. So what we're going to do is we're going to once this compressor cycles off, we're going to shut down our main disconnect, and we're going to start pulling out air filters and start the preventive maintenance on this. The time right now is exactly 1 o'clock. We should have this wrapped up in about 30 minutes. So the time for the tenant, as far as building up temperature, is going to be really short. We just cycled off. We're going to go ahead and shut it down. We are now going to start the preventive maintenance on this air conditioning unit. The first thing I want to do is I want to shut down the unit and then lock it and tag it out. So I'm going to use my non-dominant hand, and I'm going to look away while I open this disconnect switch, just in case there was a problem. And there's no problem. I'm going to go ahead and use my lockout tag out, put the keys here in my pocket so that no one can start this unit. And I've got my tag on here. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Now that can't open. Now, another precaution that I'm going to take to make sure that indeed this unit is off, let me grab a screwdriver. Okay, there's 2 things I'm going to do. Number 1, these contactors here for the condenser fan motors, if I did not shut that off, if I push this in, I should hear that start right up. Nothing. Another thing, I use my meter with non-contact voltage. This is the incoming power source from there is coming in through here. There's nothing there on the terminal blocks. One last thing I'll do is I'll go voltage AC, and I'll go ahead and touch here to see if I have anything on my meter. There is nothing there. So I am very safe to go ahead and work here on this unit and not be in jeopardy of this unit starting up. Okay, this here is inside of the unit where the air filters are stored. There is a metal plate in there that needs to be pulled off. Then the air filters can be taken out one by one. And then this is how we will remove all the air filters out of the unit. See how that comes apart. So basically we're just going to continue following that through and take out all the air filters. Okay. Taking out the first air filter is the hardest one. Then the other ones pop out fairly easily. Okay, now that all the air filters are out of the unit, now you can see this economizer damper section that's right here, and the Nighthawk is going to go ahead and lubricate the lubrication points associated with that. So there's the actuator motor, is the orange part right there, and then there's the pivot points, and he's going to go ahead and just use some spray lubricant and lubricate that up during this annual maintenance. The can he's got's a little low, but we have another can if that one runs out. Alright, that's beautiful. And then go ahead and lubricate the damper points where they meet there at the pivot points. So you'll see it'll just touch up where the damper actually has a moving point. Just put a little lubrication there to keep that lubed up. And we'll do that for all the dampers. Alright, now here's another damper section right here where he can get those. Okay, now we're going to do lubrication on the bearings. This is the supply fan. That's a pillow block bearing right there. Now that's just grease that's spilled out from previous. Now you can see that there's no Zerk fitting directly on the top of that pillow block bearing. The way that this is done, it's got a plastic tubing and the Zerk fittings are over there. So I'm going to go over there, pump in about 10 shots of grease, and that should give me some new grease over here in this area. Okay, so now I'm crawled inside of the air handling compartment there. I can see my belts from my supply fan, and the belt condition, these are obviously a cogged belt, not a smooth belt, but the belts are actually in good condition. The inside one is a little bit more sloppier than the outside one, but I'm going to loosen up these bolts that hold the motor down. I'm going to move this motor over towards the end of this project, not right this second. Okay, this same pillow block here is fed from this Zerk fitting right here, and this Zerk fitting does the back pillow block bearing. This here is my lubrication bucket. I have spray lubricant that we were using for the dampers, plus I have two different types of grease guns. I've got the one with the hose pistol grip, plus the this one here. Now for this particular one, I'm going to use this one because I got the better, more leverage on it. So what I'll do is I'll just wipe down the Zerk fitting real quick before I put my gun on it. Then I'm going to go ahead and put my gun on it. And I'll do this one here first, the one that's closer to me, and I'm going to count the number of pumps, and I'm going to see how many pumps before I can see some new grease. 1, 2, 3, 4. This has to be straight on. I'm also observing this to make sure that this isn't at an angle and this is leaking out the side, because I don't want the grease out the side. I want the grease in the bearing itself. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I could hear it make some noises. I can't see the new grease, but that was 15 shots. There might be some grease in the back. Now, after I get done greasing, what I want to do is I want to take a bag like this. Let me open that up. This one was in the bucket with the grease, so it's got some grease on the bottom of it there. Let me actually turn this inside out so that if there is any grease, it's not going to touch anything. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some paper towels here. I'm just going to see if some new grease shot out the back, because I can't see it with from this perspective. Okay, there is new grease. That was about 15 shots of grease. I couldn't actually see it on the front of the bearing, but it did shoot out the back. I could hear it while I was pumping it in. And that was 15 shots. So what I'll do is I'll just give 15 shots on the rear bearing there, and then I'm going to wipe these bearings down. So let me go ahead and give this one 15. 1, 2, 6, 7. A little bit leaked out, so I went a couple extra and gave it 17. Okay, so then I'm going to wipe my gun down because I want to keep that clean. keep the tip over here. I'm going to wipe down my Zerk fittings because I want those clean. Grease just left behind is just going to collect dust. So I don't really want a whole bunch of dust collectors here. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe that down really well. Okay, now on this one here, I'm going to go ahead wipe that down and get both the inside and the outside really, really well. And I'm just using a disposable paper towel here to wipe it up with. Some guys use rags, but you're just going to throw these in the trash anyways. There's no reason to use a very expensive terry cloth rag when you're just going to throw it away. Just try to keep the costs down. So there's that bearing. I'm going to follow through and do the same thing with the other bearing, the bearing on the opposite side. Now before I go over, I'm going to check my motor. I got a Zerk fitting here, and I got a Zerk fitting here on the motor drive pulley end. Now I'm not going to put 15 shots of grease in here because basically that's just going right into, it'll go into the motor. I don't want that. Basically what I'm going to do here, we do this every 6 months for the lubrication. I'm going to give this 1 shot of grease because I do not want to over lubricate the bearings here in the motor. Same thing here, I'll give it 1 shot. Oh, that one leaked out. I got to get that one better. Alright, my gun was slightly at an angle. You can't see it from your angle, but I can see that it leaked out. And so I just gave it a full shot. And I'll have to wipe, now of course I'm going to wipe those up right now as well. Keep those fittings really nice. And then I'll get the other side and I'll do the same thing for the return fan. And that's it for now. Okay, now I'm in the condensing section. The compressor's right here. One thing I'm looking for is to see if there's oil leaks anywhere. That would give me an indication that possibly I've got a refrigerant leak because the oil usually leaks out with the refrigerant. Everything seems pretty dry. I don't believe I have a leak. Plus I'm monitoring my temperatures on the building automation system and the temperatures are really good for this unit. Now, on my 2 condenser fan motors here, I can see the belts, see how good or sloppy they are. I'm going to check right now. The condition of the belts is good, but the condition is, the tension is a little off. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that a little bit there. Now for the lubrication, this bearing here is super easy to get at, but that bearing is not. So instead of using the handle grease gun, I'm going to use the pistol grip grease gun, and I'll show you why. Down here, I'll give that about 3 shots. Let me give it another one. All right, 5 shots, and I can see new grease coming out. Now, I'm not going to give this one 5 shots because I cannot wipe this one down, but I'll give this one a good 3 shots. 3.5. And I'll leave that one because this one you can't wipe it down really well. Even this one you can only wipe down just the top section here. So basically I'm going to do that. Now for this here I'm going to just put some WD-40 on this and use my adjustable wrench, back these off, and then tighten these up, which will push this plate that way, which will give me a little bit more tension on my belt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I've already did the lubrication and cleaned up there. Just wipe down this Zerk fitting right there a little bit. And while I'm wiping that down, I'm just going to put a little WD-40 here, just to make it a little bit easier for me. Now one thing I'm doing in here, because these are kind of small quarters, is I'm just sitting on an empty bucket, and you want to be comfortable when you're working. You don't always want to be kneeling down there. Now when you're using an adjustable wrench, one thing is I want to loosen this up, which means I want to turn it counterclockwise. Well, I don't want to hold my wrench this way. I want to hold the wrench this way so that the strength of the wrench is in the solid portion, not the movable hand portion there. So that way it's a little bit less stressful for the wrench itself. I'm going to loosen these up. Get a little bit more lubricant there. Alright, now the motor end is up at the top here, not at the bottom. So the one that's really going to matter is this top one here. Alright, so now I'm going to tighten that up, pushing this plate towards me. And that it will tighten these belts up. You can see I've got a big distance here. I can really go a long way to tighten these up. I can hear it making a difference. So I'm going to go a little bit. You see it's already come off of this bottom plate because this is where it's all happening right there at the top. It's always happening on the drive end, which is where the belts are located. Now I can feel that tension. Turn that by hand, see what that feels like. That actually feels pretty good. I don't want to go too crazy. So now I'm going to take that bottom one, have it come in until it's touching that plate, got a little slight tension on it, not terrible. Then I'll bring these back. Then I'll tighten those up going the opposite way. That'll secure that plate in place. That is adjusting these condenser fan motor belts. I'll leave that WD-40 on there. It'll give it some protection for this steel and help me if I need to make an adjustment in the future. So that is the lubrication and a belt adjustment for a condenser fan motor belt. I'll go ahead and check the other side now, and if necessary I'll definitely lubricate it, and if I have to do a belt adjustment I will. Okay, you saw me adjusting the condenser fan motor belts. This is the supply fan motor belts, and the way that this works is the motor sits on this rail, which is adjustable by a bolt on the back side, which will kind of slide. So this is how much slop is in the belts. It's not terrible. The back one is a little bit worse, so I'm going to just tighten that up a little bit. I don't want that piano tight, but I'm going to try to bring that down a little bit to remove that. So the way you do that first is you take these and you loosen these up. There's 4 bolts on the top rail that hold this motor down. I don't take these off, I just loosen them because I want to slide that motor across. Alright. These 2 are super easy to get at because they're right here in front of me. The other 2 is going to be a little bit difficult. I've got to change my position here. Here we go. That's that one. Come on. And one more to go over here. Okay, all 4 are loose now. Now the motor is being held in place by the back adjustment. So I need to take and draw this motor back. Okay, I need to draw it back this way. So I'm just going to make a mental observation here about this distance that I have here. If this was cleaner, I'd take a black Sharpie. But I don't have, there's a little bit of grease here. I'm just going to put a mark here so I can kind of see how much I'm actually moving this motor. Okay, so now I'll adjust my wrench out because it's a different size nut here on the back, and I'm going to tighten it, and I am going in the correct direction, I can tell. And you can see that line, if you can see that detail, that's pulling away, indicating I'm going in the correct direction. So I'm just going to try to go, oh, well, there's about 3/16,
And I'm not going to go any more than that. That's even pretty damn tight. There's a little bit of deflection there. The back is much worse than the front, but the front will soften up a little bit, and hopefully they'll get closer to even, which is my goal here. But these still have plenty of life left out of them. I'm not going to tighten it anymore. I went about 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch approximately. Now I tighten these down. Now you just want to get these pretty tight, not Superman tight, but tight so that this thing isn't going to move for at least 6 months. All right, about that much. And I'll do all 4 that way. And that is how you adjust this particular motor and the belts. Thank you. Okay, now the lubrication is done as far as the dampers, the bearings, they're all completed. This here is the supply fan, the evaporator coil for this unit. And the airflow normally is traveling this way on this unit. So what I'll do is I'm going to take my garden hose here and I'll back flush this coil. Then I'll actually go on the back side of it and get that side as well. But I'll start here. So I'm just going to wipe down, I'm just going to wash this coil in the opposite direction with water. I'll get it on this side and then I'll go on the other side and get it on that side. This here's the metering device, TXV, thermostatic expansion valve. After the metering device, it goes through this distribution header where it goes into the coil. Now, the water drips down into the pan here. It goes out, there's a trap right here, and then it goes down. I'm going to also clean this out. You want to make sure all of the water, the evaporator water, can be drained very easily. There's a screen here. I'm going to make sure that that gets cleaned. We've got a screen that blocks the intake there, so I'm just going to wipe that, spray that down, and I'm also going to take and spray this right in there. I want that as clean as possible. I'll put that screen back and I'm just going to continue hosing down. Let's see if I have enough to do. Alright, so here I am just washing the coils in the natural airflow direction, so I'm hitting it from both sides. Once this is done, I'll put the air filters in. Okay, now I am going to go ahead and put the brand new air filters, pleated air filters, inside of this air conditioning unit. There are 3 trays that hold these units, and these air filters have an arrow to tell you how the airflow is going to go across the air filter. But in case you forget, it's always the side from the pleated towards where the metal is. So the metal is always going towards the coil. So there's three racks or trays here. So if there's an example, on the top tray goes in that way. On the middle tray, it would go in that way. On the bottom tray, you do it this way, and it goes like that. So I'm basically just going to fill up the whole tray with them in the correct location, and then I'm just going to put these metal bars on that hold them in place, and then the air filter portion will be completed. Okay, now all of the air filters are in place. One last thing I want to do is I want to take a black Sharpie and I want to label the date
that I installed these filters. So if someone comes after me, they open the door, they can look to see when the filters were installed. So it's an easy way to do a reference point. I like to do it as soon as you open the door, boom, there it is right there. So this is a nice white portion right here. This is November 11, 2013. And that's a good practice to keep. Thank you. Okay, so now we've completed the lubrication. Both the spray lubricant as well as the grease lubricant. We've adjusted the belts, checked the belts, adjusted the belts to get good tension. We've replaced the air filters and hosed down the evaporator coil and drain line to make sure that that's all flushing properly. So the last thing that needs to be done is just the washing down of the condenser coil, but that can be done with the unit on. Because if it was raining out, this section would be getting wet anyways, and it's not going to harm anything to have the unit on. So I'm going to go ahead, come back here to my disconnect. I'm going to remove my lockout tagout that I had put into place to start the preventive maintenance. Okay. And again, I'm going to use my non-dominant hand. I'm going to close the switch while looking away. Alright, now that'll go through a startup sequence, and that will start up and we'll just wash that down. And that's basically how you do the annual. One thing I did not do is I did not put refrigeration gauges here on this unit because I didn't feel for this maintenance it wasn't necessary. If the unit, if I felt like there was a problem with the charge, then I would go ahead and put on the gauges and check the charge. You'll see that in a different video and checking the charge of an HVAC unit. Alright, thank you. Okay, so here's the Trane air conditioning unit, 30-ton unit, and the condensing section is blocked behind this panel, not this panel, these are electrical panels right here. These louvered panel doors, I got to pull those off to gain access to wash down the condenser coil, and then also I need to pull off this door and this door right over here. There's the disconnect switch, and there's the lockout tagout, which you want to utilize when you're doing preventive maintenance or service on a unit. Alright, so the spray lubrication and the grease lubrication have been completed. And now Lewis is spraying down the evaporator coil, and he's trying to flush out the evaporator drain line, which is that line right there from the inside. Over here where the filter bank section is, he's going to spray down inside there with the coils. All these louvers have already been lubricated already, so all the lubrication is done. We also lubricated these outside louvers here, 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 and here. That's all completed. On the back, there's an exhaust fan, and the belt on that is in good condition, and that's operating fine. And the lubrication for the pillow block bearing and for the motor has already been completed. The air filters are pulled out of the unit. Once he's done spraying the evaporator coil down, we'll put the new air filters back in. And now the condensing fan section is now opened up, so you can actually see the coil here and on the back side of the coil over here. Now there's 3 condenser fan motors here, no belts, just direct drive. So there's no lubrication, so there's nothing to do with those. Just check the operation when the unit is running to verify that all 3 start up. And that's it for now. We'll continue putting these filters back in now, and we'll wash that down on the condenser. One thing that I'm looking at when we pull out the filters, I'm looking at the condition of the pleats to see how dirty they are. These are fine. These have been in service for 1 year. We got a good life out of these filters.
I don't think that we overextended them or underextended them. I think that we got a good service life out of these filters, so I just wanted to point that out.
All right, now we're going to do the annual preventive maintenance on this AC package unit, rooftop unit number 4. Here's a disconnect switch. This handle right now is up, so it's on. I'm going to throw that down again with my left hand looking away and extending my arm from the body. Throw that down. One thing that you can do, even without putting the meter on here, is I can look at the switches and exactly how this disconnect switch engages. Bring that camera a little bit closer so you can get this. Alright, so right here is the 3 portions of the disconnect switch that transfer the electricity from these conductors, which are currently hot. These conductors are hot right now, 480 volt 3-phase. And then when you take the switch and put it on in the up position, it throws in these 3 items, these blades that engage and allow the electricity to transfer from here, down through the fuses, and then out, and then out. So just physically looking at it, you can see that it's proper. And then just as a backup, I'll go ahead and throw my meter on there. NCV, which stands for non-contact voltage, you push that in on this field piece meter. And if you can hear that, it's buzzing on the 3 conductors up at the top, which it should, because those are live conductors. But down here, now that middle one's giving me a little bit of a trace. Nothing on the left and right, so let me just go ahead and do a voltage AC. And we'll do one final check here. It's nice to go to ground, and usually this conduit right here is a good ground source. So let me just stab in on one of the top ones there. You see that's 286 volts to ground. Now we'll go ahead and hit the copper here on the fuse at the bottom. There's nothing there. Nothing there. And nothing there. So we're not getting anything on all these 3 phases to ground. So then we'll just go ahead and close that up and throw our lockout tag out on that disconnect switch, and then that will properly lock out the unit. And then just pocket that key. That prevents that from operating. Now on this unit here, I think it's about 20 tons. This unit right here, I don't know the exact tonnage. We'll go ahead and open up these 3 panels to gain access to the evaporator coil section and the supply fan for the bearings. And then we'll go around to the other side and we'll wash down the pre-filters, and then we'll change out the air filters as well. Alright, we've got the 3 panel doors off to gain access to the supply fan section. Here is the supply fan here. Right there is the bottom of the motor, right there. There is one bearing on the bottom of the supply fan shaft. That's right there. The motor itself has 2 Zerk fittings. We'll capture those and grease those up. Let's see if I can show that to you. There's one right there, and there's the other one. Coil is in good condition, very good. 2 thermostatic expansion valves, TXVs, right there. The belt, which is a cogged belt, is in excellent condition. No reason to change that. The tension on it feels good too, so we're not going to make any adjustments there. And there's one more Zerk fitting for the top right there. We'll get that as well. Alright, so that's what we're going to start off doing. Okay, all the greasing is done, which goes pretty quickly. Now we're just going to use a garden hose, and we're just going to wash the coil from this side going that way. After we get done with this coil here. We'll throw these 3 doors on because we'll be done in this section. Here, these are the metal pre-filters for the air that goes inside the unit before it hits the pleating filters. And then so the makeup air goes in here, and then depending upon the economizer position. You could take them out and then wash both sides, but it's on this particular unit it's satisfactory just to hit them just like this and let it drain out. There's 2 of them, one up here, one down, one up and one down. The air filter section's behind here, so basically on this panel access door I'll just use my adjustable wrench, loosen up these here, turn them to the side. Actually, I gotta pull off this door too. Alright, so here's your air filters. There's 2 different sizes here, 16 by 20 by 2. There's 4 on the top, and on the bottom it's got 16 25 by 2s. In order to draw them out, I just keep this hook here, just a coat hanger inside the unit. So that way you can reach in, kind of hook the last one, and just pull them towards you. That's after 1 year of service. You still can see a little bit of green in there, so that's actually pretty good. Now I'm going to wash the coil down, but I'll do that after I lubricate. There's damper sections over here for the return air and for the makeup air. So let me grab some spray lubricant. So I got some spray lubricant here, and I'm just going to lubricate up those moving parts. Alright, now I'm just going to wash the coil down. I'll try to keep this electrical line out of the way. Those are ready for filters. Now one last thing I want to show you is over here. Bring that camera up closer. This here's the drain line over here. And I've washed the coil, so it's washing out pretty good now, but I want to give this a good flush, especially on the annual service with my I've got my garden hose right here, so I just put it right on top there and just flush right down. And I'll also go in here too. Always trying to keep the drain lines as clear as possible. Throw the air filters in here, date the filters, and then put these 2 panel doors on. Okay, so I've shut down unit number 3. Here's what the inside of the disconnect looks like. To open the door, when the handle is down, you push that tab down slightly, then you lift it up. If you push the door in, there's a little catch mechanism to hold and support the door. So the way this one works is there's blade switches that are here, here, and here, that when this handle goes up, it turns those blades to engage the knife switches like forks. And I can see clearly that they're all in the open position. So that's, you know, a good visual there to tell that indeed that the electricity is off to this unit. I'll still go ahead and get my meter and just do a double check with NCV, but that's, I just wanted to show you what that inside of that disconnect looked like. Okay, so now that the unit is off and tagged out, I can see that the belts, the tension is really good. These are a cog belt, and the condition of these belts is great. There's 2 Zerk fittings for the motor, 1 on each end, and the supply fan shaft has 2 bearings, pillow block bearings right there. We'll get those. This is a pretty new unit, so everything's pretty clean here. This here is the air filter section and the coil section. Now the way they do it on these modern units is they put these air filters on a tray. So this way you don't have to use a hook and a coat hanger or whatnot. You can pull out the tray in order to gain access to your filters, and they make it super easy for you. Here's the conditions of the filters after a year. These are doing their job really well. They've caught a lot of dust there. It's a little bit of darkness on the back of the filters, but a 1-year expectancy is excellent. We got a good service life out of these filters. We're going to pull out the filters, wash the coil, and then we will also wash down this drain line. Here's the evaporator drain line here. So we'll blow through here and clean out this whole section here, amongst as well as the lubrication. Come on back here and you can see the condensing section. This unit has got 3 compressors, and they stage off and on depending upon the load of the unit. So to run as efficiently as possible, it's always running the smallest amount of compressors necessary for the load. And then here's your condenser coils. The condenser fan motors are located on the top, direct drive. There's no belts or anything like that. And that's about it for now. Thank you. This unit does not have return fans. What it has is it has 2 exhaust fans. One here, one here. There's also pre-metal filters which are located here. Now those I'm going to go ahead and pull out. Basically what you do is you just kind of push, lift up, take them down that way. Then I'm just going to pull these out, put them amongst the wall there, and clean them all out. They do have a directional arrow on them, so the airflow here is traveling in. Here the airflow is traveling out because that's an exhaust. Looking at it, it's a little hard to tell what the direction is, so you really need to look at the arrows there. All right, now that all the pre-filters are washed and just sitting there to dry, I'm just going to wash down the evaporator coil. You can see on the ends here that there are 3 rows of coils. I can only get half the coil on one side, so I'll have to go on the other half of the coil to try to get the other half. Alright, so the way that this works is that the pan here, the evaporator drain pan, collects here at the end. I'm going to just take this, put it here at the where it exits, and I'm going to try to clean and flush this out as good as I can. You can see it popping through there a little bit. One other thing that I can do to make sure that this is a good, nice and clean, I keep this cap just on there hand tight. So I'm just going to pull that cap off, and I'm going to blow this a couple different ways. I'll blow it in and I'll blow it back the other way. That just really flushes that out. Just trying to keep that connection as clean as possible. I'll let that just go on the ground for now, and then I'll put that cap on after I do the whole coil. Alright, so I'm going to go over and do the other side. Alright, so the coil has been washed on both sides. On this side, as well as this side here, as best you can. This was the worst part to go into. Here you can see the 2 TXVs for the 2 stages that we have there. For the refrigeration cycle. Now we're going to go ahead and do some spray lubricant on the moving parts here and the pivot points for the damper assembly. So with the air filters removed, now is the best time to go ahead and do that. And then after this lubrication for these dampers has been completed, then we'll go ahead and put the brand new air filters back in place. Alright, so the evaporator drain line on RT unit number 3, I was having problems with it clogging up, so I installed a couple of ball valves actually in this drain line. So under normal conditions, this is pitched towards the drain. The evaporator drain water comes down this line, down here, and then down into the building. And when I was needing to flush it out, I was not getting a good flush when I needed to clean it out, because I was having problems with this line here clogging up. So what I'm going to do, now usually I use a brass spray nozzle here, but I couldn't find my brass one, so I just have to use this green one here. It's not a perfect fit. The brass one is tapered and it fits in here perfectly. So on this one here, I'm just going to have to cut my hand on it. But basically what I'm going to do is turn that on and run that water down there. Then I'm going to close this valve here, which is going to force it down into the building. And I'm trying to really flush out that line. So I'm just going to do that for a minute, or half a minute there. Take that back. Then I'm going to open this. Now I'm going to back flush going the opposite way. So I'm cleaning in every direction I can in order to get anything. Normally you might get some slime buildup or some type of a gel that could cause a clogging. Since this is an annual service, I don't want to revisit this for another year. So I'm out here now to wash coils. So I've got my garden hose out here, I've got everything I need in order to give this a good flush. I'll flush it down here one more time, and then that should be good. So that's the procedure in trying to flush out this drain line. So when you do your annuals and you're washing your coils, you do want to make sure that your drain lines are also cleared up. So that's why on this drain line you see a couple of ball valves right in this position. So now that we're pretty much done with this unit, all that's left is to wash the condenser coils on Unit 4 and Unit 3. And you don't need the unit to be off in order to wash the condenser coils. I'm going to go ahead and turn this unit back on. Just going to poke my head in there to see. Actually, now that the switch is in the on position, the door doesn't want you to open. That's a safety precaution of the disconnect. So I'm just going to leave that, and I'm just going to wash the coils now. The condenser coils. I always do the condenser coils last. After all the lubrication, changing the filters and everything else. This coil is hard to get at. Alright, come over here. Actually, I'm going to go around the unit to get the other side. This one's not so bad. Air checkability. Just the one in the back.
Smoke?
Yeah, I can see that this belly band heater is really working, doing a good job here.
Yeah.
This belly band heater is not giving me anything. I might just want to check that out just to see if that's working properly. But I just got a little bit of water on this belly band heater and it's giving me a little bit of smoke. But the other one's not doing anything. You would think that they would both be on at the same time. So I'll check this belly band heater out just to see what it's doing. So I might as well check all three. I'll do that in a moment. Alright, so this is a 25-ton McQuay air conditioning unit. And I want to right now investigate on the crankcase heaters. This is the electrical compartment door here, where the electrical components are, and the schematics are pasted right to the door. Very common for an air conditioning manufacturer to put it just like this. I'm interested in crankcase heaters. First thing I'm going to do is I look at my legend to see what this manufacturer calls crankcase heaters. Usually they're referred to as CCW. This manufacturer refers to crankcase heaters as CCH, which is fine. I found CCH right over here, so I can see that they're labeling CCH 1, 2, and 3 for compressors 1, 2, and 3. Now if I follow that back, there's a symbol here with two lines going up and down and a dash across it. Those are called normally closed switches. Can you zoom in on that to see the switches? Okay. So what's happening is that when the compressor is not on, the normally closed switch will allow the crankcase heaters to be on. Right now the compressors are not running. All three of them should be on, so we're going to go and check them right now. So let's go back here. Alright, now I've pulled off the door so I can gain access to the heaters. I'll just quickly do an NCV. I can hear it going to that one, going to all three. Now I'll take my meter, I'll go amperage AC, and let's see what the amperage is on each of these belly band heaters. So I'm going to capture one of the wires, and that one there is pulling 0.2 0.32 approximately. This one here is pulling a little bit higher, 0.55. Let's see what the big one here is pulling. 0.54. These two should be identical, so I'm kind of surprised that this one is pulling a higher amperage, but they are apparently all working. Now, one other thing that I can, so they're drawing amps, which means they should be heating. Now, I actually would like to just test to see how warm they are. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use my hand. I'm going to use the back of my hand, and I'm going to just gently touch it and pull away. I can feel that that one is warm. This is the one that was steaming. I'm just going to see how hot that one is. It's running hotter than that one, but it is working. And I'll check this last one. So all three of these are working. They are, the whole purpose of a crankcase heater is when the compressor is not running, you'll have refrigerant migration in the bottom of the compressor because this is where the oil sits. Oil attracts refrigerant. So when you start the compressor, you could potentially wash the oil out of the compressor and also create some liquid slugging if you have a lot of refrigerant down here in the crankcase. The way you prevent that is with crankcase heaters. And that's how they work, and these are all working appropriately. I'll go ahead and put the door panel back on and we'll be done with this unit. Okay, so now we're checking the crankcase heaters on RTU number 4. There are 4 compressors here in this compartment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check to see if this is warm with my hands. And you can compare it to the top of the shell. Compare the bottom of the shell to the top of the shell. The bottom is just a very lukewarm. It's not super hot, but the top is colder. There's a definite temperature difference. The amperage is very, very low on this style. 0.03 amps. 0.03 on this one. Let me check the back compressors here. 0.02. One back, there's a compressor back here, but it's too hard for me to reach. I have to get a ladder. So I'm just going to go by feel. And that one is good. So all of these crankcase heaters are good. You can see that the way that they did the piping here, that this is one circuit, and this here is the second circuit. I'm not sure which one would be classified as circuit 1 or circuit 2. It's not identified here. Let's see here. This refrigerant pipe that's coming down here, you can see the diameter of it. And the discharge is over here. So the discharge has got a smaller diameter pipe. The suction side has a larger diameter because it's a low pressure, larger volume. When it compresses down, it compresses to a high pressure but a smaller volume, and that's why the diameter of the pipe is smaller. So it's very common for the refrigerant to come into the compressor at the top of the shell where the motor is usually located. Down here would be the pistons, this type of a compressor. And so that's it. We'll button this back up and we'll wash these coils down. Alright, so here's just washing down the coils, the condenser coil on RTU number 4. And once we finish this one up, we'll go over to the other units. Alright, we're back to RTU unit number 2. It's got 2 compressors that are right here. This compressor is not in service at this time. We're just using this one. This one here has a belly band heater. I already checked it. It is warm. I'm just going to put the amp meter on it to show you what the amp draw is. And amperage AC. This one's pulling 0.23 amps. So the belly band heater pulling 0.23. So, and it is nice and warm, so it is doing its job. So I just wanted to show you that. Okay, I am inside the cavity for rooftop unit number 1. Here's the very large compressor for this. This is a Copeland compressor. See if I can't just bring that down a little bit. And I'm checking the crankcase heater. The heater on this style is located right here. Okay, and just a probe that goes inside there. So I couldn't get my meter on. I had to open up a panel door here, follow the conduit up, and just grab one of the wires. There is your amp draw. This one's pulling a very loud 1.47, 1.48 amps. So I just wanted to show you that. And that's looking good.